The call came just after sunrise. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered it with the same ritual I developed over the last 6 months: hope first, fear second. A man's voice asked, "Mrs. Parker." My heart started racing. "Yes," I said. "This is Detective Alvarez. We've located your daughter." I dropped the phone. 6 months. 6 months of an empty bedroom, unanswered prayers, and a silence that never stopped screaming. I picked up the phone again, crying, "Where is she?" He replied, "She's safe. We're bringing her in now." I sat on the edge of the bed, shaking uncontrollably. I tried to picture Lily's face, her laugh, her crooked front tooth. I remembered the way she always tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. When the police car pulled into the driveway, I ran outside barefoot. The back door opened, and a girl stepped out. She looked just like Lily. Same height, same hair, wearing the same jacket she disappeared in. But when our eyes met, my chest tightened. "Something was deeply wrong," she said softly. "Mom." The words sounded rehearsed, almost like a line from a play, but I hugged her anyway. I cried into her shoulder, desperate to feel that connection again, not wanting to let go, not wanting to think. At the station, the routine began. They asked their questions. Doctors checked her vitals while social workers hovered nearby, their faces a mix of concern and procedure. "She was found at a bus terminal 2 states away," the detective explained. "She said she ran away." I just nodded. Kids run away. They get scared. They come back. It was a story I was willing to believe, but that night, back at home, the truth started whispering in the quiet corners of our house. Lily always took off her shoes the second she walked in the door. This girl didn't. Lily would have immediately asked about her cat, Patches. This girl didn't. Lily would have complained about the hallway light I always left on for her. This girl just went straight to her room, straight to bed, without a single word. I stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. Her breathing was shallow, and her hands were clenched into tight fists. Something felt off, a discord in the familiar melody of my life. The next morning, I decided to test her, gently. "Do you want pancakes?" I asked, holding my breath. She hesitated for just a moment along. "You make waffles?" she said, her voice uncertain. A chill ran down my spine. "No," I replied calmly. "I make pancakes." She froze, her eyes widening slightly. "Oh," she said quietly, "right?" Over the next few days, the mistakes started piling up, each one a tiny crack in the facade. She called her uncle by the wrong name. She didn't recognize her favorite song when it played on the radio. She flinched when I put my hand on her shoulder, a gesture that used to bring her comfort. I tried to rationalize it. I told myself that trauma changes people, that my own grief was making me paranoid, making me see things that weren't there. But then came the one thing I couldn't explain away. I checked for her birthmark. Lily had one, a small crescent shape right behind her left ear. She always hated it and tried to cover it with her hair. I waited until she was asleep that night, my heart pounding in my chest. I gently brushed her hair aside, and it wasn't there. My hands went numb. I felt the world tilt on its axis. I called the detective immediately. He listened patiently as I explained everything, my voice trembling. When I finished, he sighed, a sound of weary resignation. "Mrs. Parker," he said, "kids adapt after something like this. Bodies change. It's probably just the stress. She's not my daughter," I whispered into the phone, the words tasting like ash. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then silence. That night, I barely slept. I just watched her. I listened to the rhythm of her breathing, counting every single difference between this girl and the daughter I knew. On the third night, she broke the silence. From the darkness of her room, her voice was calm, almost detached. "You know," she said, "I practiced a lot. My heart stopped cold." Practiced what? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Being her, she said. I flicked on the lamp, flooding the room with light. Her face was eerily calm, too calm for a child. They told me you'd notice, she continued, her eyes fixed on me. But they said you'd be too afraid to say anything. Who? I whispered, the single word catching in my throat. Who are they? The people who brought me here. She sat up in bed, her gaze unwavering. I was missing too, she said, just not from you. And then she told me everything. She had been taken years ago from another family in another town. They had held her, trained her, moved her from place to place, and used her for reasons I couldn't begin to comprehend. When my Lily disappeared, they saw an opportunity. They needed a replacement, a way to close the case and make the problem go away, a clean ending. They said your daughter is alive, she said softly, her voice filled with an empathy that broke my heart. She's somewhere. My chest burned with a mix of fury and a new, terrifying hope. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Her answer was simple and devastating, because I don't want to disappear again, she replied. I called the police immediately. This time, they listened, really listened. DNA tests were ordered, followed by silent days and excruciatingly long nights. The results came back. She wasn't Lily. An FBI task force was formed. The girl, whose real name we still didn't know, was placed under protection. And as for my Lily, they're still looking. But now they're looking in places they never would have considered before. They're looking for a network, a pattern, a monster hiding in plain sight. The girl stayed with me temporarily. She had nowhere else to go. The first night after the truth came out, she finally cried. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I just wanted a mother. I held her because none of this was her fault. She was a victim, just like my daughter. Weeks later, a lead came in, a storage unit, a name, a pattern emerging from the darkness. Hope returned. It was fragile, terrifying, but it was there. I don't know how this story ends yet. I live in the agonizing space between faith and fear, between prayer and despair. But I know this much is true. A mother knows. A mother knows even when the entire world tells her she's wrong. Even when the face is familiar and the voice sounds close enough. This is Nightline, and sometimes the hardest truth isn't losing your childhood as realizing the nightmare didn't end when she came home. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing for more true life mysteries.